I'm sharing now.
Okay, then it might be me. Wait,
She's making it PR friendly just for the recording.
Yeah.
Okay. It's up now.
Now-
Closing all the Etsy tabs and stuff like that.
I can give an overview of the beginning, and then I can call out people and then see what we can do.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Okay. So just starting off with the TLDR on stuff. A couple of big things that we have. The new logging standardization. I'm guessing most of you have pulled the latest changes from the GNOME repo, and you saw that when you run the node, you actually have a lot of different and kind of nicer visualization of what's happening. Miloš introduced this change. It's actually using was it slog, Miloš, or what was the logger?
Yeah, we swapped everything for an slog interface across the code base, but under the hood, it's just Zap.
Nice. Okay, awesome.
And yeah, just want to say this logger also had heavy input by Gillum, without whom it wouldn't be this amazing looking. So, shout out.
Awesome.
Okay.
Right. Okay. We've added Gno.dev into the root makefile. So Gno.dev, as you guys know, is like a tool for quick development of Gno stuff, Gno code. And the reasoning behind this was essentially we want to point people to this tool as like the first step in development, one of the first steps in development. We're going to be also revamping the getting started section in the docs to accommodate this. So the idea is basically instead of people having to clone the repo, then set up a faucet, then get tokens, then try to deploy, blah, 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 they can just run Gno.dev, which already has the test1 account imported inside, and also it just works out of the box, right? It's very, very simple to use. And that's why it's in the root file, root make file. Nice. Another thing that is a good thing to mention is the fact that we're just going to we want to start referring to Gno or Gno.lang as Gno instead of Gno.lang. Morgan has had this on his table because the idea is you don't really have a problem just like Go has. Go is also a standard word in English, so it's kind of a messy thing when you talk about it. You don't know what you think. What you mean, but in this case, Gno doesn't really mean anything in English, so Gno as the name of the language is perfectly fine. And the idea is you don't have to go back and change everything. We're just going to start doing it this way, and then on a best effort basis, we can kind of retroactively here and there change the Gno.lang to Gno. Yeah, that's it. There's been updates to the reference docs about Gno.dev, and there you go. It's now a top level command: make install .gno.dev. Yeah, the reference for Gno.dev has been added to the docs. Okay, cool. Yeah, that should ease a lot of the beginner development efforts for people. What's planned in the works for the next 2 weeks? Mark is working on the Gno VM debugger. It's already partially done. Actually, you can actually use it now. There is some stuff that needs to work on, but Mark can fill in on this. But you can go ahead and actually test the Gno VM. We had a small demo today on the call. So, Mark, do you want to say anything about this real short?
Yes, if you want, if there is enough time, I can make a short demo.
Yeah.
1 minute.
Sure, maybe we can do it after the agenda. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Perfect. If anybody wants to go in and test, you have the PR link right there. Morgan is working on benchmarking systems, so he's been he was just testing out some of his code and figured that the code he used to the code he used to test his changes might actually be useful for everybody else. Morgan, you want to fill in?
Yep. This was something just out of the change that I even posted. Yeah, the bad there that is mentioned. Yeah, so like this tests a few things, which one of which was already a benchmark within GNO, and just creates a system for testing like multiple things. Yeah, it's like already found it useful in a couple of cases to show where some changes were actually slowing down our code. And once it's merged, we should be able to eventually also set up graphs, continuing the work that Antonio had started almost a year ago to create, a benchmarking graph and a dashboard and website.
Cool, nice. Milos is working on a config and secret suites for Gno.land, so this is going to help us and help people who want to run actual validators configure their node and configure their secrets within the node. Milos?
Yeah, so basically these two PRs introduce a command suite with the end goal of us having essentially two commands that you will use to start a chain. And if you needed anything more complex like secret management or validator management, or you want to add your own boot nodes or whatever, you can do it through these commands. So that's basically the gist of it. The secrets that we actually manage with the node are just the validator key. So whatever you use to sign new proposals if you're a proposer, the node P2P key, so whatever you use to authenticate, and the final one is just an optimization for the consensus. It's called the last signed validator state. And that's pretty much it. Yeah, the config PR just introduces commands to modify the config toml. So now you don't have to run the node, stop the node, manually open the config and change like whatever you want. Now you can actually just like use a simple two or three commands to do whatever you want. So yeah, that's basically the gist of these two PRs. They're 100% UX, and they bring us to a point where you can essentially run Gno.land init to initialize everything for you, and Gno.land start to start your node, and you should be up and running with a multi-node network.
Nice.
Yay, that's good news.
Very cool. Yep, Guillem is working on improving TX star in Node.dev. There's a bunch of small PRs. Okay, Jeff, sorry. Go ahead.
You say what you mean by a multi-node network?
Yeah, so it's essentially, this enables two things. One thing is the official configuration that we're going to have for the mainnet or any kind of official testnet. You're going to have boot nodes or like seed nodes in the beginning. So initial nodes that you connect to when you start your node, right? These are going to be like hard-coded somewhere in a configuration, right? But for example, if you wanted to have your own testnet with your own boot nodes, right? So to create like a multi-node network, you could do that with the PR because you can say, okay, generate whatever, grab the node ID, add it into the configuration, or add it into the, add validators into the Genesis, however many nodes you want. So by multi-node, I literally mean you can start up a cluster of 4, 10, 20, 50 nodes using these PRs, because the multi-node functionality actually works. Like P2P actually works under the hood. There is just no clean way to orchestrate it. The UX is just terrible right now.
Maybe I have to take this offline, but there's the idea of multiple validators who validate a block. But then there's the client application, which has an endpoint to connect to in order to send a transaction.
Yeah, so not all nodes that you have in the network need to be validator nodes. You can have, for example, right, like the nodes that you're saying that you connect to as a client, these can be just very simple non-validator nodes that are, just like an RPC cluster hanging around syncing chain data. They don't validate anything, right? You can just ping them for data. They're archive nodes, right? And this is what I'm saying. So with these PRs, you can essentially, add validators, but also start a node that's not a validator node, right? That's just like an RPC cluster or just like a light client or something like that.
Okay, we can take this offline. This has implications for GNO Native Kit and the way it configures its connection to the blockchain. So, but we can talk about this separately.
Yep.
Thanks.
Nice. Great. Guillem?
Yep.
Wait, Michelle.
Okay, too fast. Sorry.
What?
Guillem, sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a few notes about Gno.dev. So I'm working on 3 main things. Adding test, because Gno.dev is no more proof of concept, so I need to add test. But it's harder than what I was thinking. It's include since is using like multiple tools like Gno.land, Gno.web, and everything, like working this together and testing all of this. It's kind of difficult. I'm working as a request from Jeff to persist data on disk. And lastly, I want to improve the way we interact with Gno.dev. So I'm kind of working on a things to improve this. But yeah, that's it for Gno.dev. I finished a pull request on hot reload that has been here for a month, I think. It should be done. Just need a review, I think, on this one. And about test script textar, I just made a pull request which adds a use command and actually remove the load of the entire example folder, so we can granularly add and choose what we want to load. We can choose to load the example folder, but you have to specifically say it, which I think will be better for the script, like to minimize the dependency we want to test. And that's it. That's it for both of these.
Cool. Nice. Ariel, you want to hop in?
Let's-
Yeah, sure. So basically for last couple of weeks, I was thinking about how we can utilize the no mod file on chain to for versioning and on chain dependency management. So I mentioned my thoughts on issue 6 and 4. Michelle, can you open the link? Yeah, this one. So this PR is just the basic implementation of my thoughts on versioning. It's still work in progress, but it works. You guys can test it out and let me know your thoughts in the comment section.
Cool. Awesome. And as a final small update, today we're going to be holding the first edition of the GNO office hours on Discord. So this is just supposed to be a place for new devs, people who aren't really familiar with GNO, to just hop in and ask anything. It's going to be me, Michelle, John, and Michael, just sitting there kind of waiting for questions, just like when you go to your professor and ask them stuff about the class that you don't know. That's the general idea. Of course, anybody who wants to join and actually has any dev questions that are beginner level, let's say, you can hop in afterwards to the Discord and you'll see the event. But other than that, yeah, that's about it. For section 2, the blockchain itself, the faucet implementation. Oh, Jeff, sorry, go ahead.
So our agenda with making these videos about native kit and these other tools is that in one of these sessions, if someone says that I want to develop an app to interact with the blockchain, but I'm not a Go developer, my app is in TypeScript, that we train you to say, well, there is this tool which will allow you to interact with the blockchain from your native language. So that's a PR, and we need to tune you into that.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
I'll get Carlson to go after you on that.
All right. So up next, portal.gnoteam.com is the staging version of Portal Loop. I think people are already aware of this, but we can use it for testing. We're just waiting the DNS changes to switch it over to Gno.land to actually have it there. Gno.land had a couple of updates in the meantime. So MSG call now supports floating point arguments. Yep, let me open it up. It's make TX call, right? So you can actually pass in floats to make TX call, which means that essentially you can also pass them into GNO clients. Okay, cool. Nice. Jeff, thank you for adding the support for energy run. That's great. Now we can have multiple energy calls packed into a single transaction in the client, and we can actually yeah. So this is the energy run, yeah. And then just can you open that combined in a single transaction, Michelle?
Yep. Sorry, it was. It's
Yeah, that's okay. No worries. So yeah, this PR just introduced the change that you can actually. So the idea is Gno can pack multiple messages, be it message call, message run, message send, whatever they are, multiples of them into a single transaction. So this just updates the Gno client API to handle this. So now you can actually call multiple messages in one single transaction. The idea is to implement this change into other endpoints as well. So we'll be able to have multiple message runs and multiple message sends further down the line.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep. And then there was a small update on the config on the signer on the GNOME client. So before we couldn't really add the chain ID to the signer, which is important because you need to sign a transaction with the same chain ID that you're sending it to. So now this PR had that fixed. Awesome. In the works for the next 2 weeks, the Faucet Hub, it's under development. You guys are already aware of this, but it's essentially going to be a singular place to access multiple faucets for GNO, be they test 3, generally speaking. Actually, John, do you want to hop in and fill in on this?
Yeah, thanks. So we have a couple faucet solutions now, and they've just proved to not be the best solution. So some of them breaking, some of them running out of funds and things like this. So we're trying to see this as, not to completely repeat what Leon just said, but it's an aggregator. There will be multiple endpoints herein in this one singular interface. So you won't have to be chasing around different endpoints, and it will also support third-party chains. And what we mean by that is if there are variants of chains using the GNO VM, we can then have those endpoints here as well. So it creates this kind of one-stop shop for test token needs across a variety of networks. So not only our own internal, what would effectively be a dev net, a test net, unfortunately not a main net, but if only. But the idea is, you just come to this one place and you have all your faucet needs. So we've taken feedback from these various faucets that we've had in the past, as I've said, that maybe haven't worked super well or experienced issues here and there, and are incorporating them into this. There's a whole backend that was redesigned. I think Leon was either involved or singularly did that. But the whole backend is in place. So now this Faucet Hub initiative is really more focused on the front end.
The backend that John mentioned is actually Gno.land/faucet. So it's a tool that Milos developed, which is a configurable faucet solution, which is basically going to be replacing the GNO faucet that we have in the mono repo currently. Yep.
Which is around. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, cool. Next up, for Jeff mainly, I'm gonna make a PR to update the message run in the. So as you can see right there, a little bit down, you can see that run config is just using package and then a bunch of other stuff, and then the base transaction config should be extracted. So the idea is essentially all transactions have the same couple of fields, and then messages have different fields. The idea is you can have a singular base transaction config, and then you can have per message configs. So I'm going to make a PR to just change this. This will change the API. That's why I'm mentioning it.
Great. We already updated GNO Native Kit to use the new call interface, and we'll do that for run. Thanks.
Great. Awesome. Nice. Benchmarking CPU cost, opcode storage. Whose is this?
Slide.
Dylan.
Probably and Dylan. Yeah, that's my.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead if you want.
Yeah, well, we've had like some tracing that we'd put in place, and now we're want to have something that is like less resource intensive for recording some of like the timings and like for like allocations and IO that occurs as a result of various opcodes, and so we can run a lot of like the testnet transactions and more of our own like kind of transactions that we come up with to like, gather data and then try and come up with a way to use that data to make like intelligent decisions on what gas prices should be.
That's really cool.
That's all.
Cool. Nice.
That's really neat.
There's work on the way to forbid importing realms into packages. This is a discussion that we've had before, and we don't really think it makes sense to be able to input an R into a P because the packages are supposed to be independent / unrelated to the state. If that's a good way to say it. Hariom, do you want to fill in on this a little bit?
Actually, right now I'm a bit out of context, though.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, but that's about it. Cool. Dylan is working on. Is this you?
Gno.land
The
GitHub.
Oracle?
Yeah.
It's still in review. The next step is like to write the client that kind of interacts with that, and then we'll have it fully functional.
Yep. Awesome. Great. Michael, you're up.
I just have a
Right.
sorry, I have a
Oh
quick
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, on the CPU cost, like, will there be a place where you can like Dylan see it and like be able to analyze
That'll
it?
factor into fees and stuff as
Okay.
well. Like that'll be a large part of what controls the gas system as well as the separate fee systems.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Cool. Sorry. Thanks. Off to you, Michael.
Oh yeah, no problem. Yeah, so the big priority recently has been this user profile system. First for Game of Realms contributors, but eventually for mainnet contributions, essentially as like a profile to at a glance. I'm gonna cool, it loaded properly. To like at a glance see, we're gonna redo that README as well. We've made quite a few developments since then. But yeah, basically anytime somebody both during Game of Realms or mainnet makes a contribution, there'll be a handful of scripts. I would say 4 or 5 at this point, and some GitHub action stuff. So basically, whenever somebody submits a draft PR, it will kick in the first script and store information. Well, first it'll make sure they have a profile based on a directory structure that Manfred made. So there's a contributors folder, and if a new contributor contributes and they don't have a existing directory inside of that contributors folder, it'll basically make them one. It'll make them a blank notable contributions document. It'll make them basically a blank resume document that they're able to fill in manually, as well as a CSV that will update continuously based on their contributions. So essentially it'll scrape data, things, as simple as PR creation date, PR whenever they mark it ready for review, whenever it gets merged, if it gets merged, the timestamps for all of that, so we can kind of generally follow how long someone has been working on different things or exactly who all is working on what tasks. Yeah, essentially at each point during it's split into 3 stages. There's the draft PR stage, the ready for review stage, and the merged stage. And as the PR is marked with those different conditions, then different scripts will kick in, pulling different data, different metrics, and storing that all in a CSV, which will probably eventually get sent through Dylan's Oracle to then display, the newest contributor is this username through Portal Loop on our website, or the latest community PRs are this. So, and again, just it'll kind of give us a way to at a glance see somebody's body of work, how long certain projects or how long certain projects took, things of that nature. So that's nearing the final testing stages here. Morgan helped me squash a bug that I'm super appreciative for. Little string header bug, but we were basically slamming our head against it all week, and we've gotten past that. So we are on to a new error code, which is super exciting. But I'm hoping by the end of this week or super early next week, we can even kind of officially demo it and kind of put it into a public testing phase. So it'll probably eventually, the GitHub Actions files and everything themselves will probably live in the mono repo eventually, but it'll print the actual metrics and profile stuff to a separate repo just to keep the mono repo from getting cluttered at all, or it from messing with anything that's already there. So yeah, slowly chugging forward there. We'll redo the README after that fact, and basically trying to make this as robust as possible so that it works both with Game of Realms and for mainnet, and we can continue iterating on it over time. I kind of bought my own one-person organization account on GitHub, so that way I can test the permissions and interactions between multiple repos before saying more definitively this is ready to go for our organization as a whole. So that's the main thing at the moment. I've also been working on the GovGen kind of simulation and analysis framework. It's a handful of different scripts. It'll similarly to the Gno.land airdrop sim, look at the proposal data. I believe at this point proposal 82 and 848. See the base atom holdings of each address, how each validator voted, how that corresponds to delegates if they did not vote personally. From there, it basically will spit us out a Excel or whatever other kind of data format we would like, letting us know what the distribution will look like based on the different weightings. And I'm building this to be extremely customizable and extremely modular, so we can change how both proposals are weighted separately. Maybe we say that Prop 848 is, 70% important, and Prop 82 is only 30% important. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be a 50-50 split in terms of what we deem most important for weighting. And then from there, we can further weight how their base atom value is adjusted based on how they voted. Yes, no, no with veto, and abstain. So I'm hoping to even have that done by the end of the day, at least an initial version of that. And I'll post that in the Atom One Hub GitHub. And from there, again, it's every parameter that I could make customizable and as clear as possible to change I have, just so that this can evolve as the discussion evolves. Ray and I also briefly began talking about gas and fee discussions again, just a little bit last week, talking about, how to best way to calculate some statistics, or just kind of brainstorming a little bit. So especially once I finish those first two batches of projects there, I plan on revamping this with Ray and Dylan as well, and using their benchmark data to finalize the gas and fee systems separately, do some simulations and analysis on that. And, from there, it'll largely be based off of, as was mentioned, CPU cycles needed and time needed for a transaction. Potentially storage being its own separate thing that we can touch on at a later time. But the bulk of what will determine how much a user pays is CPU cycles and time it takes to actually process the transaction. There's also been a really big, a lot of legal discussions recently. Nathan has come on as our new general counsel. He's been doing a really fantastic job. We've been meeting with him and Josh and a couple of the other attorneys, and just kind of hashing through the decisions we've made thus far, figuring out the best way to structure things, what we can say, what we can't say, and just making sure that everything is above board as possible here as we continue to confirm more and more systems and keep building more and more as a result. Next week, that's going to be kind of continuing, where once I make sure that it works organization-wide, the profile testing system, I expect my next step to be making sure that the CSV and the other documents look as pretty as possible, are neat and update cleanly over time. Maybe eventually we change from CSV to something else, but kind of extra features and potential for stuff like that isn't super urgent, and we'll get all of the base functionality working and tested and super efficient, and then we can continue to add to that over time based on anything we may need or want. Similarly, GovGen framework, as I mentioned, Dragos and I have been talking a little bit about how the Flipendo, the token supply works for that, and the minting of new tokens whenever you solve puzzles, and being able to sell combinations of the more simple puzzles that you use to create more complex NFTs. And so again, once we wrap up these two main, the GovGen and the profile scripting, we're going to put a little bit of time into modeling out some scenarios for Flipendo, and we'll be able to continually refine that over time as once it launches and we get real world data. But even before that point, there's a bunch of cool stuff we should be able to do, just to look at a handful of different things and make sure that everything is performing as expected in a number of different scenarios. At that point too, getting more into gas and fee with Ray and Dylan at that point, ideally, once the other stuff is knocked out, and beginning discussions kind of related to that, where Jay has been kind of on and off discussing the idea of maybe we have a separate coin that is strictly for persistent storage. So, oh, Flipendo. Oh, I know. That's my cold. I actually know how to say it. I promise. I'm losing my voice and I'm all stuffed up. So that was my Northeasterner accent. But I promise, Flipendo is indeed has no E in it. So I apologize. Yeah, so Jay's kind of been talking on and off about maybe we have a separate coin at some point, a separate token, and maybe 1 million of those tokens is equivalent to 1 terabyte stored persistently on chain forever. And then, applications that we deem particularly important, maybe they're granted some of these tokens, maybe they buy them, and making it so that they can basically, spend X amount and then not ever have to worry about storage, since again, the base gas and fee system will be based largely on CPU and time and not memory or storage. So that'll be kind of continuing. We'll keep bouncing ideas around there over time once we have the base gas and fee systems done and modeled and benchmarked, etc. From there, I've also been trying to participate more in community discussions and just general communication. Johnny and I have been doing some recordings. Michelle is starting office hours back up. I've been trying to publish more docs with any downtime I can find, or at least revise older docs based on more recent discussions, and trying to hang out in Discord more often, things of that nature, and maybe be able, try to more directly link communications with the stuff we're working on here, at least on a higher level, or at least if there's something we can't say definitively, at least letting them know what some of the options may be. So that'll be a priority moving forward, just to make sure that while people are waiting, they can at least feel like they're part of the process and have an understanding of what to expect, especially as our ideas evolve over time. So. Yep, that's probably going to be the bulk for the next 2 weeks of it. We also need to set up we currently don't have a working tokenomics meeting time, so I'll be sure to get together with everyone and try to figure that out. Atom 1 is temporarily taking priority on the day that we had changed it to on Wednesday, so maybe we end up moving it back to Tuesday like it was for the better part of a year. Maybe we do the off week to the Atom 1 meeting. So that's something I'll need to get together with, I'll make sure to discuss it with Manfred or anyone else to figure out a time that works best for everyone here, including Jay.
Cool. Thanks, Michael. Moving on, we've got section 4 VM and no, I've got to change this. It's no longer Gno.land, it's no. I don't know if this is Ray or...
Yeah, this is Morgan.
Morgan, okay.
Yeah, sure. Just a sec. Okay. So there's some updates done to GNO test. So it's still like the way the GNO test works is still a weird Frankenstein of stuff, right? Because it's got file tests and it's got tests and it's got all kinds of stuff. It's now less of a Frankenstein of stuff because the part of the system that handles tests in the _test.gno files, most of the input of that is moved into GNO directly, and what that means is mostly what is written on both the agenda and the issue. So the test output is no longer buffered. The success of subtests is reported correctly, and they sort of are the input of the subtest goes to the correct place. We don't put any more -- failed when a test is filtered, which I found incredibly annoying and was the original reason why I did this. And you can now use the skip functions and the fatal functions within GNO code, and they will actually work. For this specific part, there's a helper function that has been added for like a edge situation. So basically the way that skip and fatal works right now is through using panics. Obviously, as you can imagine, if you use a panic and you recover it, then the test is not actually interrupted. The way that Go handles this is using runtime Go exit. So because we don't have Go routines, you can imagine why we couldn't do that. So what we have right now instead is that if you want to recover a panic within a test, you should use testing.recover instead. But you can find this by typing in your command line gno testing.recover. Anyway, let me get on to what is planned for the next few weeks. So there's what I want to work on is for a better precompilation system. The precompiler is possibly a misnomer for what it is. It's really like a transpiler. It transpiles like the GNO code into Go. And aside from being like a nice utility that we currently have in the GNO comment, it actually serves some purposes. It allows us to validate code in ways that we otherwise couldn't directly with GNO. That includes, for instance, like functions that are missing a return statement. So the way that we do that is by running the precompiler first, and then when we are on chain, we try to like run the precompiled Go code, and then the Go code will say, no, this has an error, right? And that's how we reject the code in that case. Otherwise, the chain would be more than happy to accept that code, right? So it's doing like an amount of supplementary linting and vetting tasks, you could say, on GNO code currently. So it is more important than it might seem at first glance. It is also part of our pipeline if you try to change realm or package in examples. So that will need to be changed in order to integrate with native bindings, and what that will enable us is to create more standard libraries that are specific to GNO. So rather than having everything just crammed into STD, which also creates the need for STD shim, what we can have instead is that we can have more standard libraries for GNO, which through like the mappings of native bindings can be directly converted and actually call the respective Go native functions when using the precompiler. That is something I wanted to work on for a while. It has become more important as we are having a push to renaming the STD package. Secondly, there's quite a bit of a landmark PR. I may have already mentioned this a couple of weeks back. It's called the GNO type check, and it was done by Maxwell. And I just added this because reviewing this PR is a kind of a task in itself, and we started doing that. Me, Jay, and Antonio. And it will continue to be iterated upon a few times probably, but essentially this fixes from what I've seen, like a substantial amount of issues by essentially adding support for proper type checking within the GNU VM code. You might be wondering, wait, didn't you have that already? And the answer is kinda. So we're going for a full solution now. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Off to Tendermint 2.
I think Milos.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, yeah. The first PR is actually by Morgan. It's splitting up the DB implementations that we have currently in Tendermint 2 into subpackages. It also resolves a dependency that we have between Tendermint 2 and GNU VM. And yeah, this is about it for this PR. It just tidies the code base that we currently have. The next one is, so we're adding, the way I can explain this next feature is to anybody who's sent a transaction and wondered, is the transaction, did the transaction go through or did it fail for whatever random reason after it was sent off? Now they can with this PR and this endpoint. What this essentially does is it brings back the endpoint that we have for fetching transaction results using the transaction hash. So you as the client, you can always calculate the transaction hash, right? But what you can't do is you can't ask the node, hey, what happened to this transaction using a transaction hash you already have, right? The way you would previously do this, the way you do it now currently is you essentially need to monitor every single block and basically go through every single transaction and every single block and do transaction matching and check if the transaction that was actually included in the block is matching your transaction. And if it is, then you got to do another call to get the deliver transaction results, right? And this is just very, very cumbersome when there is no need for it. So this PR just introduces an endpoint that you can call. It's called TX. I've added it to the client code. So if you're using this is confusing, the Tendermint 2 client, HTTP client, WebSocket client, it's also added there, but you can also use just like regular post requests, right, to fetch this. And it just gives you back like the transaction. You just give it the hash, and it gives you back the transaction results. You can see whether it failed or succeeded, and get any kind of return information back. Yes, sir.
We definitely want to use this in GNU Native Kit, especially for mobile, where you could lose a connection and want to be able to connect later to find out the result of a transaction. Is this check free? Is that a DDoS vector?
No, it just what it does is if the transaction is not included in the block, or if it was dropped entirely for whatever reason by the node before it was actually executed, then you'll always get like a nil response. But if it's there, then you're going to get some kind of response back. Specifically, like it's outlined, I think, in the PR. It's core types dot transaction result or something like that. I think that's in type. It encompasses like everything. So the height, this transaction itself, like the full transaction, but also the delivered transaction results and the checked transaction results. In terms of if it's a DDoS vector, it's just a regular method on our JSON RPC server. Currently, we don't have any protections for the JSON RPC layer. The general gist behind having security for layers like this is this JSON RPC server. So the node itself is not going to live on, going to live on the internet on an IP that you can directly hit, right? So it's always going to be behind some kind of load balancer or firewall, right? That does this kind of traffic monitoring for you, so you can't exactly spam the node, right? So this is the security aspect of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same problem you have for all the other endpoints you have. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, look forward to getting into that. Thanks.
Yeah. Just worth noting that this exact functionality is what we have on the index search tool. Just the index search tool gives you a few more bells and whistles, meaning you can subscribe and you can get like bi-directional communication with the indexer, whereas here it's just like a single endpoint that you can call.
Okay.
Okay. And yeah, there have been improvements for the transaction indexer. This is by Antonio. He's currently not on the call. But yeah, these are actually not just improvements by Antonio. It's also by the Unblock team. So we're essentially expanding the indexer functionality that we have to include transaction filters, but also to include just drastic improvements to how we fetch data from the database and other little goodies. Antonio is fully responsible for that, our database guru. So yeah, just like nice UX improvements and speed improvements to the indexer. The one improvement that's actually interesting to everybody is probably the ability when you're creating filters with the indexer, and people who've used the indexer, I think the Unblock team, they'll know when you're creating filters, you can have like a lot of filters in memory, and when something happens, it's kind of troublesome to update all of them individually. Antonio introduced the fix, which is basically cuts down on the update time for all the filters, so everything is pretty much instant. It just makes it way faster. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this part of the update. And yeah, that's it. The last point is a PR that's open by June. Yeah, adds the functionality for transaction filters too.
Great, awesome. And now for the final point, now everything that we've been waiting for, Mark. do you want to show the debugger?
Okay, Mark.
Oh, yes, sure. Okay, let me share my screen.
Yep.
So we can debug something.
Nice.
Okay, you should see something.
Can you just zoom in a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Nice, perfect.
So here I am in my branch, developer branch for the debugger feature on the Gno VM. So the purpose is to simply to have a new option to the Gno run command. Okay, let me run it with the help. Go run. Okay, come on. No. Minus help. No, this one. Okay, let me. Yes. Minus help. This one is better. Yeah. Okay. Here I have. So I have added a debugger flag, a debug flag, which simply enables the debugger using standard input and standard output, and it's also possible for the debugger to attach remotely from an external client. So let's play with it. So I have a small program that I will just print on the right. The test and debugger sample Gno. Okay, so this is a very simple program. The main is calling a first function, make a test, calling a first function, then a second function, and so. So let's debug it. So what you see when you run with the debug is, in fact, you enter into the debugger instead of running the program, and then you have a REPL like in the classical debugger. So I can do help to learn how to use it. You see the commands: breakpoint, clear, continue, detach, down, etc. This is all the standard commands that you would find in classical debuggers like GDB or LLDB or Delve. Most of the commands were in fact tailored using Delve itself. So let's list the source code. So you see that you can retrieve from the debugger the source code. You have the cursor here, which on the left, which indicates the current line active of the program. The program has not started, so the line is at the very beginning of the program. And then you can do a step-by-step execution, like a step. So when you do a step, you see the status line, and you have the current string, and then you can recall the command. Okay, it enters into the main. If I try to print the num functions, it's not yet executed, still undefined. And I do step again, print num. Okay, this is an integer of value 5. Okay, fine. And so on. So if then I can set some breakpoints. Let's say that I would like to step in F. So this is at line 7. So I do a break 7. I see that my breakpoint is set, and then I continue. And okay, it's stopped at the right place. So I can now examine the stack. It's super similar to the experience that you have when using a classical debugger. And you see the call stack. So we are in the function f at line 7, called by the function g at line 11, and call itself by main at line 20 here. So fine. While I'm in f, I could look at the parameters. So I could look at name. Okay. I could also move in the stack. So I have up and down. Let's go up in the stack. Okay, I move in the color, the G function. Then I can access again to the variable. Okay. And then at the end, I can continue, or I also can simply detach. Detach will stop completely the debugger and resume the program as the debugger was unattached. And that's it for the demo. I have still, the PR is not merged yet, and I have still some issues with some scoping and some also more complex display of variables like index expressions or selector expressions. And so I'm in the process of completing that, but most of the experience is there, and this is the basis for I think something which is more useful and more friendly for the programmer to get a full control and full debugging feature for their smart contracts. And basically that's it. If you have questions.
Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.
So we're at I think we're at the end. I don't know if anyone has questions for the team or if other people have questions. I wanted to ask, when do we get to see the meme realm so that we can run this competition? Yeah? Leon?
I was hoping this question would come up.
I know, but okay.
It's in the works. I promise it's in the works. We have the design ready. It's just about coding it up now. Yeah.
The suspense.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys need to do some internal marketing so we can get the design, see the design and everything.
Can I share some from the Gno.land channel for the
yeah, that was our first test subject, right?
Yeah, we have tons of new, tons of hot new memes in the Gno.land channel.
Well, so they could be moved to
fresh
the
off the presses.
There's one all of you saw, which was this one that I posted on Signal. In case you haven't seen it, this one loads from like gets a random. In this case, it's one of the pre-generated avatars, so it actually doesn't work. In this case, we got Maxwell trying to work his way through all the Flappy tests that we have. And
I love how it's always one test.
Yeah, I mean it's actually.
And then look at that. Yeah, look at the fail screen. My high score is 40. If you guys want to take me on, until we train a bot.
It's actually 3 tests. There's BFT, there's DB tests, Bolt DB, and then there's another one which I don't remember.
The Badger tests are also flappy, I think.
Yeah.
The Badger DB ones.
The Badger DB, I mean, I don't think is the case because it doesn't even compile, as a matter of fact, on master anyway.
Well, it's only 5 kilobytes.
Nice.
That's wild.
So, as Michael has mentioned, he has been doing a lot of commits to try to get his Game of Realms PR working, and he somewhat feels very glad to have finally a green bar on the GitHub.
Plus, now I get to be rewarded from weeks of hard work with a failed test. So I truly feel one with the engineering team.
Next up, we got the usual bunch of the BFT failure tests. This one came after Petar was boasting his home gym. I think this is a perfect.
And how to gain strength.
Perfect representation of a Slavic home gym. Next up, we have the departing meme for the TM Tendermint Logger library by Milos.
This is like the best meme ever. I love this.
Yeah, me too.
And finally, Gilliam trying to fight his way against the DFT once more. And yeah, then finally we got.
Oh yeah, we got that video. I forgot about that.
Max 1, by the way.
So these will all be moved onto the meme realm.
Possibly, I don't know. I'm not in charge of the meme realm, so it's not my copy.
Milos and I that are working.
Oh yeah, play the top video in Milish's video.
Yeah. So
I don't know, maybe risky.
Just for a sec,
yeah. Yeah, just this one. Yeah, just we'll give this as a departing gift, even though it's an already it's a stolen meme. All right, that's it for the memes for this week.
Thank you. Yeah. So Andrew, Black Tea and Dragas, you guys have to bring the meme game next week, huh? Okay. Anyway, we're at time, so thank you everyone. Also, thanks to you guys and Leon to organizing the agenda and making this so fluid. And it was really good. I think we're becoming really pro. So, okay, thanks everyone, and then see you next week.
Yeah. All right. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. See you guys.
Thank you.